Welcome to part 1 of our series on the Festival of New Oil. Now it's week 24, and the only thing on our calendar this week is the countdown to the beginning of the Festival of New Oil. There was nothing else, so I'm getting started and giving a head start on that festival today. At the very first Festival of New Wine, 50 days in the past, the golden calf occurred, and now, just over a year later, the same people in the second year of the Exodus experience, those tares, they're called the evil congregation, shows itself once more in the rebellion that occurs with the bad spy reports from the Promised Land. So today, in part 1 of this series, it's going to be telling their story, the story of the tares, their rebellion and refusing to enter the Promised Land, and it's not pretty. Just like the golden calf wasn't pretty, this one is not either. Next week, in part 2, we will discuss the oil that the wise virgins are supplied with during this festival. It's a great joy. It's the oil of gladness. We will be pulling together all the word studies we've done next week. The wheat, the wholesome grapes, the people who walk with Moses, Joshua, Caleb, and Aaron have a much different outcome. This is the season that wisdom has been trying to get your attention. It is the end of the 3-part counting of 7 Sabbaths, 37 and 73 being the gematria numbers for wisdom. We started sounding an alarm back in week 14 to open your ears, to recount the spiritual warnings and information being gleaned during these festivals that remain hidden in the Dead Sea Scrolls priestly writings, and are not included in the Leviticus 23 official list. These 3 sets of counting are so full of wisdom teachings. We believe it is a part of the preparation for the bride that the wise virgins pay attention to and celebrate, those who are betrothed and became betrothed at the Feast of Shavuot. Because listening to and obeying the Ruach from the Almighty is now more important than ever. And listening to and obeying the groom that you are betrothed with is your duty. I use the terms good grapes and wild grapes because just before the Festival of New Oil, remember, it is the grape harvest time. Now be sure you have watched our Moedim teachings on the New Wine Festival just prior to this one. It'll help you see the flow and the patterns that are being unfolded. In prophecy and in real life, you must remember that until the end times are over, the tares are still with us and very active in our world right now. In this video today, we are going to go through the story of the good and bad reports from the 10 spies in the Promised Land and connect this with the end-time bowl judgments in prophecy. Let's get started. Okay, so here we are at the Feast of New Oil, Part 1, the bad spies and the foolish virgins. They're related. This is the information we're going to cover today in 7 parts. So let's get started. First, a quick introduction of the 2 stories. This is going to sound real familiar. It's the same format that I used in the Festival of New Wine. We've been mentioning for the past month the grape harvest. You got to realize that the tares are there as well. I mean, it's the tares are the wild grapes. And remember how events during this time layer over time. The tares will not be fully separated from the wheat until the end times. The wild grapes don't get trampled upon until the end times. And so humanity has been cycling through these Moedim time periods, many unaware of everything, with the 2 side by side. And we will be telling separate stories in our series, like we're going to talk about the tares and the wild grapes today. And we're going to talk about the good grapes and the wheat next week. And that's how we've been doing it. And we're going to keep up the same format. Okay, part 1. Is it a hidden festival? Not really, but well, yes it is. This is the same kind of information because you see that we talked about in the Festival of New Wine, because new wine and new oil are mentioned in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, the understanding is there in the Tanakh that these things were harvested and brought to the priests at the temple, but these two festivals are hidden and not listed in the official Moedim of Leviticus 23. And I think that these two festivals are really important. What I've seen, tracking on the Moedim and events of Scripture on the ancient biblical calendar, is that not all the feasts were started at the same time and documented in one place. For instance, the seventh-day Sabbath was instituted in the beginning of Genesis in chapter 1, and Jubilees confirms that it was celebrated from the beginning. The Feast of Shavuot has been since the beginning as well. We documented and discussed that in our series on the Feast of Shavuot Part 2. Noah restarted the Feast of Shavuot in Jubilees chapter 6, in month 3, when he came off the ark. But certain religious authorities of today and through time have decided that this book, the Book of Jubilees, was not to be included in their canons, and so only certain religions got to read it, and many still today try their hardest to discredit this book so you will not pay attention to what it says. Therefore, you do not get to read in your canon of Scripture about Noah celebrating the Moedim before Moses. Neither do you read about Abraham being the first ever to celebrate the seventh-day feast in the spring that we call unleavened bread. Nor do you get to read how Abraham was the first ever to celebrate tabernacles, and it was written on the heavenly tablets in his day as an ordinance for the people. I noticed two things in this. First, the feasts get instituted as official celebrations over time and not all at once. Second, what Leviticus 23 is a listing of the official celebrations that were in existence at that moment in history. Now it is obvious that the priest accepted the offerings of the new wine harvest and the new oil from the offerings during the olive harvest. They got the olives for the oil. They were brought the oil, and the new wine festival was celebrated, and both of these are documented in the Dead Sea Scrolls and what time periods they have to happen. Okay, the new wine and the new oil even fit the pattern of counting 49 days, just like the festival between during the harvest of the barley, the counting of the Omer, as it's officially called, and that ends with the Feast of Shavuot. That was just one leg of a 3-set counting of 49 days. So the second two legs of that festival are hidden and talked about in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, in the Book of Jubilees, you do not see anyone celebrating at the time of new oil. So I propose that really our understanding of this festival, and it's the same for new wine, and the good, bad, and ugly of new oil gets a lot of meaning during the Exodus time period. Because today I'm going to show you about the tares, the bad grapes, who are experiencing the negative side of new oil during Exodus because of their actions. Now, when I started on this path, I got a big dose of what I had to do Torah-wise. What I did not get was a big dose of the meaning and significance of it. The Book of Jubilees has provided that for me, along with the traditional scriptures, and researching the meaning of the offerings and studying the language to understand the YAHudYath or Paleo Hebrew words. What I do think has been hidden is the meaning of the festival, its significance to those who have gone deeper into the Moedim and experienced the Moedim as a path of transformation on their walk with Yah. For these people, there is meaning definitely beyond the agricultural aspect of harvesting olives. We will unlock all the word studies we have been doing recently next week in part 2. If you are new to our channel and this is your first Moedim related video you're watching, I suggest you want to go back to the beginning of the Moedim playlist and start watching them all in order. It's going to give you a perspective and context for today. Now, to me, given the pattern of the feasts being instituted as official over time, I might suggest that someday, given our perspective in our day and time post Yahusha's first coming, that we might look at the spiritual significance of new wine and new oil, and it's worth celebrating. I am going to quickly cover a few basics here that I know most of you probably already know. I want to do this for anyone who is new to walking on this path and of paying attention to all the instructions given in the Tanakh and the Dead Sea Scrolls and gleaning from them. We are to harvest His Word as it is the seed and bread we need for life. So here on the screen is a list of all the scriptures that we see relating to the importance of new oil. You can pause the screen, write them down. It's in this PDF file available, and you can study these and read these scriptures for yourself. It's basic instructions of the fact that the olives and the oil was given to the priests and when it occurred, and its importance. You know, the oil that was given here was used for the anointing of priests, kings, and the objects in the tabernacle, and for the menorah for its light. I've left here for you some references to articles that talk about the timing of the harvest in ancient Israel. So today we're going to focus on the stories that contain the apostasy of the Spies' bad report, because that's really where new oil gets some of its meaning from. Okay, so let's talk about the timing on the calendar of the festival and the timing of the bad reports from the spies and their return. The counting of the days for the Festival of the New Oil begins in month 5 on day 3 at the Feast of New Wine. And the 49 days and 7 Sabbaths ends on month 6, day 22, making the 50th day the day of the Festival of New Oil on day 23 of month 6. Now, what the new oil counting is referring to, is counting the 7 Sabbaths, or 49 days, while the grapes are being harvested. The grapes are trampled during this time. There is no official name that I'm aware of in any scripture for this counting period. Like the one between the barley harvest and the wheat harvest is called the counting of the Omer. And if you haven't watched our counting of the Omer videos and the one on math, I definitely suggest them. They're great. It's a great little series. All the understanding of the Moedim are building upon one another from the spiritual path perspective. If you only celebrate the agricultural aspect, you may enjoy learning the earlier meanings to the Moedim that we discuss. If that's all you've been focusing on in your walk and celebrating in the Moedim, please watch our series. The purpose of this brief section is to make sure you understand both the Aleph, the beginning, and the Tav, ending of the journey that you're on. If you follow our weekly episodes that we do on the calendar, you will be aware of the weekly events leading up to this, and that's something we want you to check out. We believe we have a unique approach to studying the scriptures by doing it through time and through the calendar this way, not in any way to discredit Torah cycles or the reading of entire books, because we do that. This is just something new to add to what you're doing. And I just wanted to mention that. Okay, let's talk about where we came from. This is a chart, just a simple chart of the Moedim through time. And we want to just know that, we've been through month 1 and Pesach and unleavened bread, and we had the first fruits of barley. We started counting. We go through month 2 and we're counting. We go to month 3 and there's the Feast of Shabbaoth. Then we counted again to get to month 5, the Feast of New Wine. Then we count yet again to get to month 6. And here's where we are on the Feast of New Oil. And where we're headed is into the final set of Moedim in the fall in month 7. So that's where we're headed from here. Now, my personal opinion, developed over 9 years of experiencing these cycles, is that it's like a spiral. Every time I spiral through the Moedim, I'm not in the same place that I was last year. I've kind of been elevated up through going and expanding revelation and expanding truth and learning more and more. And I've thought about how we are to be like trees of righteousness planted, and trees grow by rings in a circular pattern that's spiraling outward. So I think we're a lot like those trees growing, and we are cycling through an ever-expanding journey. And we start this journey in life by crying out for deliverance and protection in month 1, day 1. And Yah, our loving Father, summons us and calls us to his Kodesh Mikra, his holy convocations, his appointed times to join his Moed, which means congregation, and learn, grow, and receive the light, the sunshine, the rain, and his word in purity. All this is agricultural metaphor. The counsel of our loving Elohim is to raise us up as children of light, who are mentioned at the end of the book, Revelation 22:14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. This is the plan in Scripture from the start to the finish that is rehearsed each year if you walk the ancient path. This path is ignored, disdained, forgotten, misunderstood, and even twisted by some. I wanted to share this plan from start to finish so you will understand how the counting fits into these cycles of righteousness that we travel every year. To fully understand the Moedim, both the congregation, the feasts, because this word means both, I suggest you watch our videos on the Moedim starting in the beginning. Our viewpoint contains their traditional teaching and then adds much understanding by incorporating things from our calendar research, First Enoch and the Book of Jubilees. Our teaching on the Feast of Shabbaoth is most important. It is a 5-part series, and part 1 is available on YouTube. There are instructions to contact us if you want to see the rest. Okay, so let's talk about how we got to the Festival of New Oil during Moses' time with the children of Yasharel in the Exodus, and this is year 2 of their journey. Year 1 was the golden calf around this season, and this is year 2 now. In our weekly episode number 18, and the Feast of New Wine part 1, is when we mentioned that the Exodus journey, that the spies were sent into the Promised Land around the time of the first ripe grapes. Okay, we're going to go back and review some things we showed in this video. It's from Numbers 13, because this is going to give you the timing. So in Numbers 13, Yahuah tells Moses to send the spies, and Moses selects, there's 12 chosen to go spy out the land from the tribes. Moses renames the son of Nun to the name similar to Yahusha. That's H3091. That happens right here. And there's instructions given to the 12 spies. Now, when you come down here to verse 20, you read, we get to the timing of how we pin this on the calendar. Now, the time was the time of the first ripe grapes when they were sent. It was the grape harvest. So that's approximately month 5, day 3. And when you drop down to verse 25, it says, and they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. So approximately month 6, day 22. Now, Numbers does not give us the exact day they left, nor the exact date of their return. But we're going to use the general approximations in this teaching because it would be very close. The text could be saying that they spent time getting to the land, and they searched it for 40 days, and then they came back. So it's 49-ish in total. So we're going to go review the scriptures around the events of their return. But that's how we get to the timing. Okay, so part 3. We're going to continue in Numbers chapter 13. Okay. The thing I want to point out here, because we went over this at the Festival of new wine time period back in our calendar episodes, I just wanted you to notice that when they go up and they've been spying in the land during the grape harvest, they come to the brook in verse 23 of Eshcol and cut down from thence the branch with a cluster of the grapes. And we went through in our last videos how Eshcol actually means I will, to teach understanding. It's an expert instructor, to prosper, have good success. It means to have wisdom, behave wisely, understand where you're at, a crossroads, and to make good decisions. We got all that from searching out the meaning of the word. So we're going to use this information in just a minute. Okay. Yeah, be sure you watched our new wine part 1 video. You got to understand that Moses was traveling with a mixed multitude out of Egypt. He had the tares and he had the wheat. He had the people of Jacob. He had the people that had come from Joseph's lineage of Ephraim and Manasseh. He had Egyptians come with him, possibly slaves that had been set free in all the chaos of the plagues in Egypt. Okay. But you also need to understand, from going back to the golden calf in this video, is that the tares and the people lost Yahuwah's presence in their midst in the camp. Now that's big. And now a year later, they are reaching towards the place that Yah wants for them to inherit and are told to send spies. One of them is renamed to the name of the eventual son of Elohim who was born in the flesh, but that we're going to leave for another time. But all this is happening right here. And they go into the promised land and take the branch of the cluster of grapes, whose name is all this stuff. Now you would think that grapes from that cluster would make a good cup of wine coming from that location. The spies came back with a huge grape cluster. I know this is all metaphor, but you got to use metaphor when you're looking at scriptures sometimes. It's telling you many things. They could have enjoyed the wheat, the wine, and now the oil, but remember the two groups in the story. Remember the parable of the 10 virgins and the oil in their lamps, and there were foolish and wise. Two groups who wanted to meet the groom. They wanted to go, two groups who wanted to go into the promised land. And in the parable of the virgins, they wanted to go into the chamber, which is their promised land. Okay, keep that in the back of your mind. So now we're going to continue on in Numbers. And when they came back, in verse 26, they brought samples back with them of the things from the land. And they told Moses that when they went into the land, that it was surely flowing with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. So they admit that the fruit of the land is very good. Now, I've color-coded this. The red is bad and the green is good. Okay. Nevertheless, verse 28, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Enoch there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea, by the coast of the Jordan. Now, on the surface, this is just statements of fact. This is not the bad report, but I've colored it red because that's what the tares focus on, are the facts. They're focusing with their two eyes on this reality. Now Caleb, in verse 30, and Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, see, he told him to calm down. He had to calm him down already. Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. So, see, Caleb is speaking to them and saying, because he believes in Yah, he knows what Yah is capable of. All these people saw all the miracles in Egypt. They saw their enemy crushed under the Red Sea. But Caleb is given a good report here. He's saying, we'll be able to do it. But the tares continue. But the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched upon unto the children of Yasharel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search, it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw giants, the sons of Enoch, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in our sight. So some of the men who had personally witnessed the mighty power of Yah are now afraid of what they saw and express zero confidence and faith in Yahuah to take the promised land. Yahuah had already told them through Moses that he would go before them and drive out the enemy. I mean, that's already been said in Scripture. But their focus is totally on their own lack of power and not on how the great and mighty their Elohim is. It continues on into the next chapter in 14. And the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. Now here's a hint. Study all the words for congregation. Think mixed multitude. Don't let the English mislead you. Think. Ask yourself, who are these people? Obviously, it does not include Caleb, Joshua, Aaron, Moses, and a bunch of other women and men and children. It's not everybody. That's what you got to study out. This is why I learned the language. This is why I teach YAHudYath classes. If you're interested in studying with me, email me. I teach. Okay. And all the children of Yasharel murmured against Moses and against Aaron and the whole congregation. There's that word again. You want to study out. Said unto them, Would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God that we had died in the wilderness? And wherefore hath Yahuah or Adonai brought us up into this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? And they said one to another, Let us make a captain, and let us return unto Egypt. Wow. So they now want to return. They have zero faith in Yah. They don't want to claim the promised land. They don't want their inheritance. Who else didn't want his inheritance? Think of Esau and Jacob. They have completely gone into apostasy on the journey, worse than even the golden calf. I mean, with the golden calf, they, made an idol and called it Yahuah, but they were still on the way to the promised land. But now that they're faced with the door into the promised land, they're doing an about face. They are voicing their decision to return and to reject Yahuah and all their vows to be his people. I mean, they are totally reneging on everything. They're like saying, I don't want to be married to you. I got betrothed to you, but I don't want to be married to you anymore. Okay, here comes a good report. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Yasharel. Assembly of the congregation. In other words, to go discover. And Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jehoshaphat, I don't know how to pronounce that name, which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes. And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, The land which we passed through to search it is an exceedingly good land. If Yahuah delight in us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land flowing with milk and honey. Only rebel not ye against Yahuah, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and Yahuah is with us. Fear them not. So, another group knows the consequences of the reaction above. You see, Moses and Aaron fall down because they know what could happen. They know what these people just said, this evil group, just these bad reports. They realize the potential consequences for everyone involved if there is a rebellion like this. And the good report given is from two witnesses, and we know we've got two witnesses in the end times. We've got prophets that talk about the two witnesses. The olive trees. We're at the festival time of new oil, of the olives. See how this is tying together. More bad report. But all the congregation, now see, it didn't say assembly of the congregation. It just says, but all the congregation bade stone them with stones. So the tares, the wild grapes, want to stone to death. They want to kill Moses, Aaron, Joshua, and Caleb. I mean, you understand, they want to commit murder. Forget the 10 Commandments, forget anything. They are so upset at hearing the good report that they want to kill them. I mean, they just won't go back to Egypt in peace and leave. They want to kill Yahuwah's anointed people, his righteous people. And the glory of Yahuwah appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Yasharel. So Yahuwah immediately comes in to stop what they had intended to do, and they are judged. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, how long will this people provoke me? How long will it be ere they believe me for all the signs which I have showed them? I will smite them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and will make of thee a greater nation and mightier than they. I've highlighted that this is another time in which he's looking at Moses saying, I'm going to make of thee a greater nation. And Moses said in response, then the Egyptians shall hear it, for thou broughtest up this people, and they might in thy might from among them. See, some of them were Egyptians, and Moses saying all the Egyptians are going to know about this. Now Moses is showing concern for Yah's Shem, for his reputation. That's what all these verses are about. And they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land, for they have heard that thou, Yahuwah, art among this people, that thou art seen face to face, and that thy cloud standeth over them, and that thou goest before them by day time in a pillar of cloud, and in a pillar of fire by night. Now if thou shalt kill all this people as one man, then the nations which have heard of the fame of thee will speak, saying, because Yahuwah was not able to bring up this people into the land which he sware unto them, therefore he hath slain them in the wilderness. And now I beseech thee, let the power of my Adonai be great, according as thou hast spoken, saying, Yahuwah is long-suffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children until the 3rd and 4th generation. Pardon, I beseech thee, the iniquity of this people, according unto thy greatness of thy mercy, as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt even until now. Moses is pleading with him, to reminding him of his Shem, of the totality of his Shem, that it includes mercy. And, Yahuwah said he wasn't going to let the sinners go unpunished, which is about to happen, but he will show mercy. And Yahuwah said, I have pardoned according to thy word. But as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of Yahuwah, because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now, these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice. That's a biggie. Have not hearkened to my voice. Surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoked me see it. Now, the ones that provoked him, they aren't going to see it. The people who did not hearken to his voice are not going to see it. So he's pardoning them from a sudden death, but they've been judged for their not entering the promised land and rebelling. Okay, the foolish virgins in the parable of the 10 virgins coming next, in the next session, are shut out from the wedding chamber. They're not killed, they're just shut out. So the judgment here is that these people in rebellion are shut out. Now we know, like I said, Moses and certainly his sons, and Aaron and his sons, and Joshua and Caleb and their families, there were people of a congregation that weren't killed off. they had to suffer for 38 years wandering around with all these other ones, but there was a certain group of men who had provoked him that were not going to make it. But my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him, and had followed me fully, him I will bring into the land wherein he went, and his seed shall possess it. Now Caleb does get to go into the promised land, and pay attention. It's because he had a different ruach and follows Yah's voice. Don't you find it interesting that Joshua is not mentioned here? It's only Caleb. And we know that he goes. Now this is a hint. This is a real thing, interesting thing to study out. Okay, verse 25. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwelt in the valley. Tomorrow turn you and get you into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. And Yahuah spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, How long shall I bear with this evil congregation, which murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Yasharel, which they murmur against me, saying to them, As I truly live, saith Yahuah, as we have spoken in mine ears, so will I do to you. Your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. There's the qualifier. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land, concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of, that name again I can't pronounce it, Joshua the son of Nun. Okay. But your little ones, which ye said should be prey, them I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms, until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. After the number of days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, you shall know the breach of my promise. So their offspring are going to enter. And this is Yahuah speaking. You get the tense. Here's verse 35. I, Yahuah, have said, I will surely do it. And all this evil congregation that are gathering together against me in this wilderness shall be consumed. The ones gathering together against him. And they shall die. Now, these next set of verses, I made a note, they seem to be either out of place in the story or they were written out of time, because we've just gone from I into somebody telling about what happened. It doesn't even sound like Moses telling about what happened. It says, And the men which Moses sent to search the land, who returned and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up a slander upon the land. Realize that's like written in third person. Even those men that did bring up the evil report upon the land died by the plague before the Lord. So this is like a historical insert in here, because you wouldn't have written this about them dying from the plague until after you'd seen it, after it had occurred. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jehunne, Yephanuah, which were of the men that went to search out the land, they lived. And Moshe told these sayings unto all the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly. It's like we flipped back into a different telling, because now we're coming back into the present time. And they rose up early in the morning, and gat them up into the top of the mountain, saying, Lo, we are here, and we will go into the place which Yahuah hath promised, for we have sinned. So they know they did wrong, and they know they've heard the consequences even, but they're going to go anyway. And Moses said to them, Wherefore now do ye transgress the commandment of Yahuah? But it shall not prosper. Go not up, for Yahuah is not among you, that ye be not smitten before your enemies. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you shall fall by the sword, because you are turned away from Yahuah. Therefore Yahuah will not be with you. So Moses is telling them that judgment has already been rendered and not to go, because they're not protected anymore. Here's the last two verses. But they presumed to go up unto the hilltop. Nevertheless, the ark of the covenant of Yahuah and Moses did not go with them. They didn't depart the camp. Then the Amalekites came down, and the Canaanites which dwelt in that hill smote them, and discomfited them even to Hormeth. Okay, foolish. Think foolish virgins. Foolish? I think so. They were deathly afraid. Remember, they just given the bad or evil reports. So they're deathly afraid, and they believe the bad report. But now that judgment has fallen, and they've been told, your Elohim has turned away from you, now they're going to go. I was just like, wow. Okay. Section 4, Parable of the 10 Virgins. We need to talk about this parable, because I'm going to talk about it even more next week. But we're just going to focus on, if you are a foolish virgin, what sticks out, okay, in Matthew 25. It says, Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps, and went forth to meet the bridegroom. So this is focusing our attention to something that's going on within. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Okay? And notice that it's 10. There were two witnesses that gave a good report that go to the promised land, and there were 10 that had the bad report and didn't get to go in the promised land. And now we're talking about a parable of 10 virgins. 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. That they were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. Okay, so the foolish took no oil. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. So it wasn't that the foolish didn't have enough oil. They just did not take oil. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. So they all are asleep. And at midnight there was the cry, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. So the bridegroom is coming, and all the virgins wake up. It says that then arose all the virgins and trimmed their lamps. So they're all waking up together. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. The foolish have no light to see the path to meet the groom. They have no light. And the light that they thought they had, their lamp, is now darkness. And the wise answered, saying, Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go you rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, so 5 of them had to go buy, the bridegroom comes, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. So the door is shut with only the wise virgins inside. Reminds me of the ark with Noah in it, where his righteousness and his family were shut up inside, and the corrupt humanity was outside. They were not prepared for what was coming at all. Noah had been told to be prepared, and he built the ark. And the virgins should have known that they should have taken oil for their lamps, but only 5 of them did. Only 5 were prepared to meet the groom. But he said, verily, so afterwards the foolish virgins come to the chamber, knock on the door, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Now the foolish are told, I know you not. And they're not being led into the wedding chamber. And they're not in the ark. They're not in that wedding chamber for the protection in the end times. Watch therefore, you know neither the day or the hour when the Son of Man cometh. So everything about the virgins is the same. It's all the same except for being prepared and having oil. Being ready for the groom and not having prepared for his return. The groom comes and the wise meet him and leave. They in this context of this story, the virgins have to go out on a path to go meet the bridegroom. The foolish go obtain oil and finally get to a closed door. The foolish hear, I never knew you. They don't hear, you're too late. They don't hear you missed the window of opportunity. They don't hear you failed to follow all my commandments. They don't hear you're on the wrong calendar even. Realize all the virgins woke up at the same time to go meet the groom. The foolish hear, I never knew you. They are not like the prodigal son child returning home to the loving arms of a father who's gone out to greet them and hug them. No, they don't get to enter and are told they were never known. Be sure, they look the same. Think about the wheat and the tares. We talk about the wheat and the tares, and they look exactly alike until the time of the harvest. Except for the reaper, except for the people who worked for the homesteader, because he could tell. His workers could tell, oh, there's something wrong. Somebody planted tares here. But it's not until the end of the harvest that we can see who's who. And here we have virgins who all look the same. But some of them are wise and some of them are foolish. Okay. Be sure to watch our word study this week on the menorah and almonds. It has information to help you go even further in understanding this. If you are interested in studying with us in our community, we have a study group that meets every 2 weeks to discuss teachings and get more insight. Send us an email using the address in the description box if you want to. I'm going to continue talking about this parable in part 2 next week. So let's connect the bad spies and the foolish virgins. This won't take long. During the time of the grape harvest, between the new wine and new oil, spies go into the promised land to see what it's all about. And they return with a grape harvest. And the grapes had the qualities, I will teach understanding, I will be an expert instructor, I will have good success, I will be wise and behave wisely, I will understand where I'm at, the crossroads, and make good decisions. And remember, there was a good report given. It wasn't all bad. Now 2 spies gave witnesses testimony to being able to overcome the enemy through Yah's might and gave a good report. They demonstrated all those qualities above. They drank the good wine. Did you notice yet that the 12 spies were sent and only 2 gave a witness? 10 gave an evil report. Yahusha told the parable of the 10 virgins, not 12. 10. And the 10 gave a bad report. So the foolish 10 spies had no real understanding of Yah's ways and trusted in him. See, it's the opposite of the qualities of those grapes. They were bad instructors of the people through their evil report. They failed to enter the promised land. They did not have success. They were foolish and not wise, giving that evil report because it had severe consequences. They made a lot of bad decisions, even wanting to stone Yah's good people. They did not take in the good wine, the good word, the promises of Yahuah at all. Just like foolish virgins, they were shut out. Just like virgins, they renounced their marriage vows and turned around to go back to Egypt. The foolish virgins were not lit lamps like the assembly in Acts 2 during Shabbaoth, who gave witness and testimony. But these foolish virgins had dark light. Their light was not lit. And even when they showed up at the last moment, it was too late. Such people will not be entering the kingdom even in the end. Remember, these people wanted to stone to death Yah's people who believed, the 2 good witnesses along with Moses and Aaron. An evil congregation giving an evil report. The prophets called the end times generation a wicked one and an evil one. What kind of report are you giving others during these end times? Are you believing his promises? Are you believing his word? Are you giving a fake, false, evil testimony? We're going through Trials and tribulations, all of us right now. Think about the testimony that you're giving. Now, the end times are bowls of dark light. That's why I titled it. In our recent videos, we have been discussing the light in the temple and the light that is supposed to be within us. We've brought to your attention this verse below, Matthew 6:23. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? So Yahushua gives us warning and shows us the possibility that we could be foolish virgins who think they have light, but it turns out to be darkness. In this section of Matthew, it is from having an evil eye. That's the context. They had an evil eye. Think about the 10 foolish spies who wanted to murder other people because they got in trouble and they were told they couldn't enter the promised land. I'd call that evil, and so did Yahuah call them an evil congregation. We did a word study this week on the word menorah, the lamp that is supposed to be burning continually in the holy place of the tabernacle with the olive oil. The menorah has 7 branches and 22 bowls for the olive oil. But I found it interesting in Revelation 15 below that the bowls are coming out of the tabernacle above, full of plagues for the wicked below. Instead of a beautiful light coming from above, they are receiving darkness to match the darkened hearts and actions in the end times. Revelation 15, verses 5 through 7. And after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened. And the 7 angels came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles. And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials full of the wrath of Elohim, who lived forever and ever. Now, it says vials there. It's a translation of English from the Greek. But when you look at the Greek word, it means a broad and shallow bowl. So they're bowls. They're the 7 judgment bowls. Bowls holding, like we had the bowls on the menorah that are holding the olive oil. And the foolish virgins had dark light. They didn't have any olive oil. And what's produced are plagues. All through this season of counting of 7 Sabbaths 3 times, think about wisdom, we have discussed the punishment in the final end times for the wicked, the tares, the wild grapes. Each of these harvests, these 3 times, are in the book of Revelation. We've done this through our series. The wheat, the final reaping of the wheat, of the tares, is in the book of Revelation. The trampling of the grapes, and what that means, is in the book of Revelation. And right after that comes oil. Comes the 7 bowl judgments. So there's much wisdom and prophecy that you need to understand. It'll help you through the end times, through those judgment periods, to understand these feasts. And that's why we've gone so much in depth on our channel into these feasts. Okay, we're going to get to the wise virgins in part 2, because next week we'll be teaching on new oil again and speaking to the goodness of the wise virgins and pull together all those word studies. If you have not watched the word studies, you've got 1 more week to go do that. Check out our playlist and just work backwards through time. We've got a bunch of word studies here. They're all going to be pertinent to new oil. If you think that was just for this particular evil did you catch what Yah wanted to start over? He said he wanted to start over with Moses a new nation. If you think that was just for this particular evil congregation, I want you to consider this. This is something else I want you to see. Matthew 21, 43 through 44. This is Yahushua speaking to the Pharisees. Therefore I say unto you, the kingdom of Elohim shall be taken from you, and given to a nation bringing forth the fruit thereof. And whosoever shall fall on this stone shall be broken, but on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. The kingdom of Elohim, as represented by the promised land, was taken away from the evil congregation. They weren't allowed to enter in. Yahusha, way in the future, from the story that we're telling here about the spies, in the future found rotten figs and took the kingdom away to give it to another nation. You see, it is the same pattern and the same judgment. Olives must be crushed by stone to release the oil. The fruit of the olive tree will give a beautiful light only when the family drinks the wine with the correct properties and gives a good report. We all are going to be broken and have a contrite spirit, as that is part of our teshuvah, our repentance and returning to Yah Elohim, and it's His way on the ancient path. So you're going through the festival of new oil, and I'm going to read these two verses to you. Psalm 34:18. It says, Yahuah is nigh unto all of them of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Isaiah 66:2. For all those things hath mine hand made, and all those things have been, saith Yahuah. But to this man will I look, even to him that is poor and of a contrite spirit, and trembleth at my word. Now, notice the consequences of failure at the time of the olive harvest, grinding him to a powder. Think about the tares failing the wheat harvest at the Feast of Shabbaoth, that had the golden calf ground into a powder, and they had to drink it. Consider how olives can be broken into pieces. They're broken and squished up into pieces, and the oil is released, and it's useful for others. But if ground into a powder, it's gone. You don't burn the powder. There's nothing to be lit. So, the contrite spirit that gets broken up is useful and releases oil, releases light that can be used by, it's useful. And it's useful in the tabernacle, it's useful to light the path. Remember from our Feast of Shabbaoth series how we trace the covenant of fire all through time and in all the covenants. A wise virgin with a contrite spirit has fire, but the foolish do not. There's one last thing I want you to notice. In the Feast of New Wine, video number 1, on the tares and the bad grapes, we ended with a section that, here I'm going to quote from that video. Now we want to be like the Proverbs 31 woman, and we want to be redeemed like Ruth. There is a good side to the wine in the kingdom, and it's not all bad. Boaz was merry from wine at the festival, and it was a much different outcome for this couple. Be sure to watch our week 18 episode and the bonus section. The women that were certainly not treated like Ruth was, nor were the men there any Boaz. Realize that Boaz and Ruth had a different spirit from the tares, and so drank from a different cup. Did you catch what he said in Numbers 14, verse 24? The scripture says, But my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him, and had followed me fully, him will I bring to the land whereto he went, and his seed shall possess it. So we have the same thing being pointed out, that Caleb had a different spirit than the ones that giving the bad report. And he had followed him fully. And what did Ruth say? But your people will be my people, and your Elohim my Elohim. And she followed Naomi and did everything Naomi said for her to do. So Caleb, like Ruth and Boaz, has that different ruach than the evil congregation does. And because he listens and follows the voice of Yah Elohim, remember, they didn't want to listen. The tares don't want to listen to his voice. That goes all the way back to when In the beginning of the Exodus story, when they were at the Feast of Shabbaoth, and people didn't want to hear his voice, they were afraid and said, Moses, you go here for us. But Caleb, because he listens, and because he has a different ruach, shall possess the promised land and his seed. See, it's giving us right here what is necessary to be the wise virgin to enter in. You have to have the different ruach, and you have to follow his ways. You have to listen to his voice. Now, we hope this teaching has helped you to become wiser about the festival of new oil. The tares, wild grapes, and bad spies don't enter into the final kingdom of eternal light. May your lamp be full of oil and yourself full of not darkness. Stay tuned for part 2 next week, which is certainly going to be more upbeat. Shalom. I hope you like and comment on our video here today. If you've enjoyed it, please help us get our videos seen by more people by doing so. Shalom.